1934 and a man called Sergei Kirov is having a great day. Just kidding, he was shot and died. His assassin was a man called Leonid Nikolaev, a member of the Communist Party who may have been acting alone. He also may have been put up to it by a certain someone, which may explain why there was nobody guarding Kirov. Nobody really knows for certain though. Kirov was the chief of the Leningrad Communist Party and was pretty influential, and the murder of such a high-ranking official was unprecedented. And the head honcho Stalin wasn't going to let such a murder go to waste. Stalin took charge of the investigation personally, and after having Nikolaev shot, he determined that the murder was a part of a much larger Communist Party conspiracy against him and the Soviet Union. This meant only one thing. It was time for a purge. A Great Purge, if you will. Stalin accused his old rivals, Grigory Zinoviev and Lev Kamenev, of being a part of a conspiracy against him which was being led abroad by none other than Trotsky. Zinoviev and Kamenev were both arrested by the head of the NKVD, Genrikh Yagoda. They were put on trial in August 1936, found guilty, and shot. Interestingly enough, both Zinoviev and Kamenev, despite being innocent, admitted to being part of a conspiracy. There are two probable reasons that they confessed to crimes that they didn't commit. One being that they knew they were going to die anyway, and so they decided to preserve the party's image. The other being, torture. Stalin had Yagoda demoted and replaced with Nikolai Yezhov, who was always up for a bit of purging. Over the next year, two more major trials were held, which saw more high-ranking officials found guilty of treason, the most famous being Mikhail Tukhachevsky. The Great Purge, also known as the Great Terror, spread further across the USSR. Factory managers, military officers, as well as many mid-ranking bureaucrats and party members were also purged in the years following the trials. Purged doesn't necessarily mean shot. Some were taken to the Gulags instead, which was much better. Stalin and the higher-ups in the Communist Party ordered communist officials across the USSR to root out traitors and any Trotskyites amongst them. Unsurprisingly, this led to a culture of suspicion developing, which in turn led to people accusing each other of harbouring sympathies for Trotsky. Between 1937 and 1938, over 100,000 Communist Party members were purged and over half of the military high command was shot. Your normal everyday Soviet citizens weren't spared the horrors of the Great Purge. Across 2 years, over 650,000 people were shot and a further million were sent to the Gulags. The reason why so many were found guilty, despite the overwhelming majority not being hardline Trotskyites, was that the NKVD, the secret police, had quotas to fulfill. Some of those rounded up were targeted simply for complaining or disagreeing with party policy. Beyond simply targeting political dissidents, Stalin focused the NKVD on different ethnicities. They were specifically ordered to target Germans because Hitler, as well as Ukrainians. When the USSR's borders expanded in 1939, the peoples in those new territories were also fiercely repressed, with a great emphasis on the Polish. The sheer number of arrests and executions began to take their toll on the Soviet economy, and Stalin decided that enough was enough and that the internal enemies had been defeated. He denounced those who had made false accusations, and in 1939 he threw Yezhov under the proverbial bus and had him arrested, and the next year he was shot. After this, the number of accusations and arrests declined massively, but that didn't mean that anyone felt safe, and that was how Stalin wanted it. The legacy of the Purge was that it cemented Stalin's position as the sole totalitarian leader of the USSR. The Purges removed any potential, mostly imagined rivals, but in doing so they weakened the USSR and made resisting Hitler's invasion of 1941 that much harder. I hope you enjoyed this episode and thank you for watching, and a special thanks to Winston Kaywood, James Bizanet, Azarka Flash, Henry Rabung, Adam Harvey and Sky Chappelle. If you'd like to learn more about the Stalinist era and the Great Purges, there are some book recommendations in the description below.